in this room but not necessarily on the shelves, and the architect who lived here loved little tricks. That was what Lahan had told them. There was a good chance this room contained one of those architectural contraptions, and then there are the Teiji symbols and the trigrams, not a subject she was very interested in. And her father had said she would not be able to solve this riddle alone. So that's what he meant, Maomao said, clapping her hands. It all makes sense, NN said, catching on. Once they had the idea, Maomao and NN worked quickly. They started trying to move one of the bookshelves. Hey, I found it first, Yao said. You just sit quietly, Lady Yao. This is dangerous. It is also very physical labor. Maomao thought Yao was probably the stronger of the two of them, although she had just enough sense not to say it out loud. Even working together, they proved unable to move the bookcase. Instead, they emptied it, then slid the empty case into the hallway. They repeated this process many times. Yao assisted by removing books from the shelves, though she did not seem very pleased about it. When all of the bookshelves had been taken away, the walls were completely revealed. This was enough to make the women feel dizzy, but removing the carpet made the sensation even more pronounced. Is this it? Maomao asked, looking at the floor. In the center was a white piece of wood. It sat in the middle of what was otherwise a standard trigram. Like the painting on the ceiling, it was divided into 9 parts. Yao said, her eyes sparkling. It's showing the primordial system. Once again they were venturing into vocabulary Maomao didn't recognize. She almost asked about it, but it occurred to her that doing so would only slow things down, so she decided to play along instead. Yes, of course, the primordial system. So where is the book? Yao was silent. Evidently that was as far as she had gotten. Liu Men had given them this task, which meant that an answer could be found somewhere. Maomao looked at the 2 books with the Teiji symbols. They were both about human anatomy. One detailed the hands and the other detailed the feet. Yao, Maomao said. Does each of the trigrams have a specific meaning? Lots. They are associated with directions, animals, and even family relationships. Are they ever associated with parts of the human body? Yes, they are, Yao said, turning quickly to the books. Excepting the missing volume, there are 8 books with the code 2, said Maomao. They were missing the second volume, but all the rest were still on the shelves, including volumes 4 through 9. The numbers were divided the same way as the pictures on the floor and ceiling. Yao said, we've already got books on the feet and hands. That would mean the others cover the head, mouth, eyes, thighs, ears, and stomach. There are 6 volumes. I brought them, said Nen, always a quick study. They opened the books and found everything was exactly as Yao had predicted. Considering the theory of the Teiji, nothing is missing, Yao said. They were still missing one number. Did the book not correspond to a specific part of the body? Maomao stood directly in the middle of the room where there was no trigram. On a hunch, she looked upward. Someone drew many animals up there, she said. You can identify what they are if you look closely. I see a horse and a dog and a pheasant, and does that one look a little like a dragon? Do you think that is all right? Yao said. It does seem like a questionable choice, Maomao said. The dragon represented the imperial family, and using it without permission could get people in trouble. You know what? Even the ceiling pictures are related to the trigrams, said Yao. Maomao squinted. The pictures were faded with age, but they were still visible. Right in the middle of the ceiling I see 1 horse and 2 sheep. Does that mean anything to you, Yao? The horse was drawn above and the sheep below. The trigram associated with the horse is called Kian, Yao answered. According to the primordial system, Kian's direction is south, its familial relationship is the father, its body part is the head, its element is metal, and its number is 1. Number. Well, how much is a sheep? A sheep can be 2 or 8, but under the primordial system it is 2. So we have 1 1 and 2 2s. Maomao looked at the books. Mysteriously, or perhaps not, the missing volume bore the number 2 II. 122. Had Liuhemin tried not to make the problem too hard? After all, the problem could be solved simply by knowing the trigrams, even if you hadn't noticed the books. On the other hand, without that knowledge, the challenge would have been impossible to overcome. Maomao looked back at the floor. The pattern of white and black planks was more complex than the one on the ceiling. Yao, she said, yes, which trigrams represent 1 and 2. Yao moved to 2 spots on the floor. 1 is this one with 3 long lines. For 2, the topmost line is broken while the bottom 2 are long. That makes and then. Maomao looked so hard at the wall it seemed like she might burn a hole through it. What are you doing? Yao asked. I am trying to see if there is an arrangement of 1, 2 and 2. It made her head hurt. All the combinations looked so similar. Worst of all, if she lost her concentration for even a moment, she would lose her place and have to start again. Yao said, I will start looking on the opposite side. NN said, and I will cheer you on. I will go make a snack, and made her escape. Maomao wanted to chase after her, but she did not dare take her eyes off the wall. She wished she could mark the trigrams, but she could not write on the wall. The headache continued. Maomao did not say anything. Yao did not say anything. NN did not say anything as she was preparing tea. With so many trigrams, one would expect there to be an arrangement of 1, 2 and 2 somewhere, but it did not look like it. 1 then 2 Maomao found repeatedly, but never with that elusive second 2. It has to be around here somewhere, she thought, and at exactly that moment she bumped into Yao. Did you find it? No, it is not here, Maomao said. How can that be? Maybe we missed it. Maomao blinked several times and looked at the walls. She would have to go through everything again and see if they had overlooked anything, but she really did not want to. Who wants tea? NN asked, coming in with a clatter of drinkware. I do. Yes, please. Yao and Maomao spoke simultaneously. Since all the furnishings had been moved into the hallway, they unrolled a rug on the floor to have their drink. That is delicious, Yao said, very happy, but when they were done, they were going to have to check the walls again. If they still could not find what they were looking for, they would have to admit that Maomao's guess had been wrong. It is frustrating how many times 1 and 2 show up, but then the last number is different. Yes, we never find that last 2. We only need it to show up once. Maomao said that. That is right, but 1 different line makes it another number. Like here, if only this yin were a yang. Yang was a single long line. Yin was 2 short ones. If yin were yang, Maomao said, and looked at the trigrams on the floor. If you took the uppermost yang line of the trigram Kian and changed it to yin, it became the trigram Kun. She stood up and looked at the walls again. It was right around here. She found a 1, a 2 and a 1. She did not think this was a pattern that was repeated anywhere else. She went to the third one, the symbol for heaven, and touched the uppermost line. She could feel something under her fingers. She pressed firmly on the middle of the line and it gave way, receding inward. From yang to yin, there was a mechanical bump and something came jutting out of the wall, a drawer. You're kidding, Yao said, her eyes wide. That's a surprise, said Nen, staring at the drawer. Maomao pulled it out and found a book within. 1-2 Roman numeral 2. The construction of the missing book was much less sophisticated than that of anything else on the shelves. The thickness of the pages wasn't quite uniform. Is that sheepskin parchment? Nen asked. From the feel, I would say so, Maomao said. Sheepskin lasted much longer than crude paper. Maomao turned the pages with much trembling. The text was written with a Western-style pen, not a brush. Very little of it was written in the Li script. Instead, it was in the spidery, flowing characters of the West. There were occasional glosses in Linese. This must be from when he was studying there. Her father had lived and studied in the West when he was younger. This experience had given him much of his extraordinary medical knowledge. Maomao muttered to herself as she deciphered the foreign text. There were plenty of words she did not understand, but she could work her way through it if she took her time. Then the blood drained from her face. She had found exactly what she expected. Maomao, Nen said, looking anxious. What is it? What does it say? Asked Yao, the only one who could not read Western letters. Maomao stood there, not moving. What is wrong? Yao reached out and turned the page. There Maomao and Nen saw what they had feared. What is that? Yao asked. There was a carefully wrought drawing of a human body. That wasn't a problem by itself. However, this picture showed the person without their skin, revealing the details of the flesh underneath. Yao caught her breath and looked away, appearing sick. The image was far too realistic to have been drawn from imagination. The artist must have had an example right in front of them. Still fearful, Maomao turned to the next page. This one showed a human stomach, sliced open, with the guts within depicted in detail. My old man used the medical expertise he learned in the West to slice open the Empress Dowager's belly. He had delivered her child in this way. Usually when both mother and child faced danger, a physician would try to save the baby at least, but Liu Hemen had saved them both. This was not something that knowledge alone could achieve. He must have done this before. Who knew how many people he had cut open, how many bodies he had cut into in the name of practice? Now Maomao understood why her old man had always tried to keep her away from corpses. Why he had raised her as an apothecary instead of a physician explained everything. Maomao closed the book. She did not blame Liu Hemen for what he had done. If you wanted to practice medicine, you had to know about the human body. Even Maomao experimented on a real person herself. But most people would react the way Yao had. She was pressing her hands to her mouth, looking at the awful text with repulsion. Maomao didn't know how it was in the West, but the average person in Li would never be able to accept what was in this book. There was faith, there were taboos. This went against both of them. Maomao looked at the back of the book. It bore spindly letters reading witchcraft. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew why Liu Hemen had hidden the book. If anyone found out about it, the book would be burned. Its existence couldn't be allowed. Accepting Carter's book was the condition of Liu Hemen's tutelage. They would have to cope with what they had found here and be willing to live with it. If any book could be called Carter's, this was it. Chapter 6, An Invitation to the Western Capital. I'll keep this, NN said, wrapping Carter's book carefully in a cloth. She and Maomao had guessed the type of book it would be. Yao hadn't guessed, though she had seen it. For a few minutes she sat frozen with shock. Still, I guess it shows she has grown up a little bit. When Maomao had first met her, Yao would have made a much greater fuss about the book. 6 months as a medical assistant seemed to have enabled her to accept ideas she might not have accepted before. Lahan sent word to Liu Hemen, and he would come for them the next day. Maomao hoped she could get her thoughts in order before then. I'm afraid there is something I have to do, she told Yao and NN. She was concerned about how they were doing, but she had another problem to deal with. It was a problem she could not escape. Soon she was bouncing along in a carriage, returning from the freak strategist's house to her dormitory. She thought it would be a lot faster if she could just go straight there. She did not want to take the carriage Lahan had gotten for her to Jinchi's villa. Instead, a different carriage would pick her up at the dorm. The woman who managed the building gave Maomao a questioning look, but she did not ask anything. Perhaps her salary included a small bonus to keep her quiet. As soon as Maomao arrived at the villa, she felt the tension in the air. The atmosphere was so dark Jinchi might have been trying to grow mushrooms. Gaeshan was going around with his brow in a perpetual furrow, and Surin looked disturbed while murmuring my. The only bright spot in the room was Chu, the serving woman. She brought Maomao tea, and it made a characteristic squeaking sound as she walked. This is fermented tea from the West, she said. It smells nice and is lovely with a drop of distilled alcohol in it. However, they told me not to let you have anything to drink. She glanced towards Surin. Maomao wished she could have the alcoholic tea. She really wished they would hold the tea for her. After a moment of hesitation, Maomao said, should I ask? She did not really want to know, but Jinchi looked ready to burst at any moment. She did not want any of it to land on her. If you would be so kind, Chu said, and Gaeshan came hustling over. There was no sign of Basin, and it seemed likely there wouldn't be while his father was on the job. Yes, well, he is to go to the Western capital again, Gaeshan said. Oh, really? The poor guy. Jinchi's face puckered in annoyance. From behind him, Gaeshan was making an emphatic no gesture by crossing his arms in an X. For some reason, Chu was mimicking him. With her it almost looked like she was dancing. She made it look sort of fun. Who is she anyway? Maomao asked Surin before she could stop herself. If I told you she was Gaeshan's daughter-in-law, would that help? Surin replied, daughter-in-law. So that would make her his son's wife. Yes, it is not Basin's, there is another older sibling in addition to the older sister. I see. While Maomao talked with Surin, the metaphorical spores had practically become a cloud around Jinchi. Maomao turned back to him, resigned that she was going to have to hear the rest of the story. So why is that? Didn't he just go last year? Sir Jyaku-o requested it. He wants Master Jinchi to see how smoothly things are running, even in Sir Jyakuan's absence. Goodness, Maomao remarked mildly, but in her head she thought it sounded like a pain in the ass. Jayukyun was Empress Jayukayu's father and is currently in residence in the capital. Unless Maomao misremembered, the Empress's older brother Jayukuo was currently overseeing matters in the western capital. Reaching that far city took more than 2 weeks by land. A round trip, including time at the destination, could easily see Jinshi away from the capital for more than a month and a half. Perhaps it is not my place to suggest, Maomao said, but is it possible that someone else could go on Master Jinshi's behalf this time? It was an admirable idea, and Gae-shun and Suhyun both acknowledged it with a nod. Only Chu shook her head, continuing to dance. She is very noticeable. Maomao thought about what to do with her. She was trying to be serious, but with Chu hopping around at the edge of her vision, she felt like she might burst out laughing. Perhaps that was the intention. It seemed especially true since she was doing it where only Maomao could see her. It wasn't very kind. Maomao knew she was trying to make her laugh. She tried her best to look somewhere she wouldn't see the other woman. Maomao's expression must have alerted Suhyun, because Chu soon found the old lady delivering a blow to the back of her head. Gae-shun had a most unusual daughter-in-law. He apologized to Suhyun on Chu's behalf. Jinshi said, "I'm sorry, but I think we had better go somewhere else," inevitably distracted by the kerfuffle. Suhyun said, "But of course, young master." She went into the next room to prepare drinks. That was perfect for Maomao, who was eager to begin treating Jinshi. She followed him into the next room and closed the door. Now without his matron and his minder, Jinshi heaved a sigh. "May I continue the conversation?" he asked. "Be my guest." "May I have a look at your injury while you are doing that? Be my guest." Maomao took out bandages and medicine. Jinshi stripped off his overrobe to reveal the bandage around his abdomen. Chu had practically caused Maomao to forget what they were talking about. What was it again? Thankfully, Jinshi jogged her memory. She listened while she removed the dressing. Sir Jayukuo himself asked me to return to the western capital. I thought I might well decline, considering I was just there. But first Empress Jayukayu and then His Majesty himself asked me to go, so I suppose that settles the matter. The Emperor and Empress both. Do you think they were planning this? Maomao felt a cold sweat break out. The exposed wound was still red. She had stopped the bleeding, but it was clearly fresh. Sir Jayukuo's letter arrived last night. He wants someone to go and see how things are going in the western capital while Sir Jayukyun is away. Maomao did not say anything. Jinshi already seemed to be mentally preparing himself. If he was going west, then Maomao would have to go with him. She inspected the injury to make sure it wasn't festering, then applied more salve. I need to get my old man to teach me some surgery, and quickly. The situation was more urgent than she had thought. If she knew how to replace damaged skin with fresh skin, Jinshi was trying to corner her, but she would not simply let him have his way. She wondered if anyone had ever done that successfully. She searched her memory for any mentions in the books she had read. There had been attempts to graft teeth and skin onto slaves in the past, but all the ones she had heard of had ended in failure. However, some successes had occurred when a person's own skin was moved from one part of his body to another. Perhaps I could pick a part of Jinshi's body where it wouldn't stand out. The buttocks, perhaps. She tugged gently at Jinshi's trousers. He nearly jumped. "What do you think you're doing?" "I suppose I cannot tell him I was trying to get a look at his rump. Sorry, I needed to loosen your trousers a bit to reach with the salve. You could at least warn me." "Have you no shame at all?" He looked at her with a very odd expression. "Now you worry about shame, sir." Maomao had been somewhat frazzled recently because of Jinshi's explosive antics, but now she was in her element. When she had a new method of treatment in her head, her mind began to work very fast. She rubbed medicine into the wound, then bandaged it carefully. "I really need you to learn to do this yourself, sir," she said, showing him the method one more time for good measure. She stepped away, and Jinshi pulled on his robe, looking forlorn. "This means I will have to accompany you to the western capital, doesn't it?" Maomao asked. Yes, that is what it would mean. On their last trip there, she was fairly sure there had been a real doctor among the staff, although she hadn't paid them much mind. Perhaps there was. Maomao's memory was not always reliable in these situations. It would be very convenient if she could remember people after seeing them only once. She did know someone who could do that, actually. Rikusen, that was his name. The freak strategist's aide was in the western capital now. Perhaps she would see him. Understood, sir. How long will we be there? She thought she could manage it if it was about the same length as last time. I don't know. I would expect a minimum of 3 months. 3 months, that was a long time, and that was at a minimum. Suddenly she had a thought. This was a punitive assignment. He had done something unthinkable in front of the 2 most important people in the nation. Of course there would be repercussions. Master Jinchi, I know. Do not say it. Did he know what she was thinking, or was he imagining something else? He could tell her not to ask, but she must ask, though she would settle for a comparatively easier question. I have a lot of questions, but let me pose this one. Why would Lady Gyukayu insist that you go? The Emperor she could understand, but even the Empress had told Jinchi to go to the western capital.